Without a doubt, across the board amongst videographers and editors alike, when we're exporting a video, one of the biggest things we're thinking about is color grading and how we've color graded our footage. Color grading is one of those things that takes our footage from looking good to looking great, and use of proper LUTs and things like that is really going to help our footage stand out. And we know that, but sometimes we don't really know how to execute that properly. This video is going to be the first of a series of videos that I'm going to be doing on color grading. Although this video is going to be very simple, we do need to have a foundation of what we know about color grading in our cameras going forward as we learn more throughout these video sets that I'm making. We're going to be talking about things like camera settings, what LUTs I'm using, how I'm tweaking those LUTs, what I'm doing to my shadows, my midtones, my highlights to make those LUTs look even more enhanced, and then plugins that I'm using that are enhancing my footage even further. It's all going to be talked about in this video. Now, I do want you to know on the front end that I do have my own LUT pack, but I use lots of other LUTs and lots of plugins to make my footage look the way that it does. But if you do want those LUTs after watching this video, you can go click the link below in the description of this video. If you join my Patreon, you get those LUTs for free if you join tier 2 or higher, and if you join tier 1, you get those for 50% off, which is a good deal, and you're also getting all the added value of everything that I'm talking about on my Patreon, from travel, client consultation, color grading, lots of stuff that's deeper than what I'm talking about here on YouTube. Anyway, that decision is up to you, but I wanted to throw that your way. So to dive in, the first point that I want to make, and again, this is going to be very duh, but it is by far the biggest thing that videographers mess up on when it comes to color grading their footage, and that is to make sure that you're exposing properly in camera. This is oftentimes overlooked and not given enough credit to the importance of how vital this is to making your footage stand out and actually be able to be color graded correctly. I know some videographers come from a photographer background, and as photographers, you can pull your camera up, just take a quick picture, and you can edit that raw in post in Lightroom, and it's going to look great. But as videographers, even though we are creeping closer and closer to shooting raw, and if you're shooting on Blackmagic, you can shoot raw, nothing beats nailing exposure in camera. And the most important thing to me, especially being a wedding videographer, is making sure that my skin tones are exposed correctly. I don't necessarily care if the window outside is blown out a little bit, or if those shadows in the corner by that couch is a little crunchy and underexposed and you can't see all the detail in the shadows there. The most important thing that people are looking at whenever they're looking at your footage is the subject of your footage, and most of the time that's the thing that has skin on it, and those are humans. And so make sure that you're exposing your skin tones correctly. If anything, make sure you're underexposing those a little bit so you can bring those up, but try to nail that in camera. Something that I'm doing with my camera, and I'm shooting on the Sony a7S III, is I always double check my exposure, no matter if I have the back of the camera pulled up or if I have a monitor on the camera, is I always look through the electronic viewfinder. This blacks out everything else in the room, and it lets me see what truly the camera is capturing, and that is the most accurate thing that you can compare what you're seeing in real life with what your camera is capturing internally. Now, again, it's not going to be perfect, but I can guarantee you it's going to be better than what your monitor is showing or the back of your camera is showing. The second thing that I want to advise is to pull contrast into your images. Now, this piece of advice doesn't just solely apply to people shooting an S-Log, V-Log, C-Log, or any other kind of flat picture profile like that. This can also apply to people that are shooting in picture profile off, natural, things like that, that already have a lot more contrast in them. And I say this because contrast is king, and contrast is what makes images pop. The more contrast that you pull into images, the more saturation you have, the more sharpness that you have. And it's something that's really going to bring your images to life, regardless of which picture profile you shot in. Now, like they say, you don't want to overdo it. Like all good things in life, you need to make sure you do this in moderation. So pull a little bit of your shadows down, pull your midtones down, maybe pull your highlights up a little bit. But adding contrast is separating your shadows from your midtones, separating your midtones from your highlights, separating your shadows from your highlights, your blacks from your whites, however you want to put it. Pulling contrast in your image is going to make your images pop more, and it's going to set them up for success whenever you put your LUTs on your footage. And that's the next thing I want to talk about, and that's add LUTs to your footage. This is another duh thing to say, but I wanted to hit on this again because a lot of people think that LUTs are going to correct their footage, and that's not the case. LUTs are going to enhance your footage. So if you started out right and you exposed properly, LUTs are going to make your footage look better, and that's why a lot of people get frustrated with LUTs, and they buy a bunch of different LUTs and you spend hundreds of dollars on all these different LUT packs, and they still don't like how their stuff looks. And it's because they've neglected the fact of actually getting good at being a videographer. They haven't been focusing on exposing properly and making sure their footage looks good. Because when you put a LUT on good looking footage, it's going to make it look great. So remember that LUTs are not there to correct your footage, they're there to enhance your footage. So if you're wanting to put LUTs on your footage, it's an amazing way to enhance and stylize the footage that you've taken out in the field. Be careful with this, just like the last thing, because a lot of people, they'll just keep it on 100% intensity and it can look really crunchy and not super good. I don't like to use LUTs above 80%. And so that's just something to remember whenever you're doing your own grade, you're doing your own thing in your editing suite, whatever works for you, but always do anything in moderation. Make sure that you're making your image look beautiful and you want to enhance it and you don't want to destroy it. Next, something that a lot of people forget to do, and they forget that they can do, is that you can stack LUTs. So I like to use a lot of LUTs in combination with each other. I like Gamet's LUTs. I like Henry Martin's Pro LUTs. I like to use FilmConvert, which I'll be talking about in a second. I like to use the Wonder LUTs, which are my LUTs that I use, but you can stack LUTs. And again, you don't want to stack these with a ton of intensity on each of them. Sometimes I'm stacking LUTs at 16%, 30%, whatever it might be, just to kind of add these little twinges of color and enhancement and stylization to my footage to make it look like my own and to make it look the way that I want it to look. Over the course of my videography career, I have had my hands on lots of different LUTs, and I have come up with a way that I like my footage to look. So I do use different LUTs to complement that and to make that package come together to make my color grading look great. Next, if you have added some LUTs to your footage and you want to go back and you want to change something with your shadows, your midtones, your highlights, something with the exposure of your image, you're going to want to go back and add a color layer before your LUT layers. To put it simply, LUTs are adding baked in information to your image. So if you're wanting to go back and you're wanting to change something, if you put it on the same layer as your LUT layer, you're going to see a difference than if you go before it and you do all these changes with your shadows, your midtones, your highlights, whatever exposure change you're wanting to do. It's just going to react differently, and it's not going to artifact, and it's not going to degrade your footage in the same way than if you were to put that change onto your LUT layer. So just make sure that you're doing any changes to your footage before the LUT layer and not after. It's kind of the same idea as if you were trying to edit a JPEG image as opposed to a RAW image. If you're editing a JPEG file or a JPEG picture, you're not going to have near as much play with the shadows, midtones, highlights, or the colors of that image because everything is baked in. All the information is baked in, and that's almost what a LUT is doing. Now, if you go before the LUT, you're going to have much more freedom, and you're going to be back to kind of the full capability of what maybe your 8-bit, your 10-bit, your 12-bit footage is doing in the video side of things. Lastly, but certainly not least, is I use a plugin on almost every single one of my videos to enhance the color of them, but also the look of them as well. And that plugin is called FilmConvert Nitrate. FilmConvert Nitrate is a film emulation plugin. And if you've been on this channel before, you've seen me talk about it, but you got loads of different options for editing things like your exposure, the actual film stock that you're using. You can manipulate the grain in so many different ways. And that's one of my favorite parts about FilmConvert is I haven't found another plugin that allows you to have as good of looking grain as FilmConvert Nitrate does. So if you want to use FilmConvert to also enhance the look of your footage as well, I have an affiliate link that's going to get you a discount down in the description of this video. I highly advise having this plugin on top of the LUTs that you're already using in your workflow because it's really going to enhance the look of your footage, especially if you're going for that film emulation look. Guys, I hope you found this video helpful. Again, some basic things in this, but I want to keep it short for you guys. I'll be coming out with more very soon. It's going to get a little more complicated as we go forward, but hopefully that is what you want to get better at color grading. So thanks so much for watching this video. If you haven't had a chance to check out Patreon or the Wonder LUTs, go to the link in the description. You can get the Wonder LUTs for free if you're joining Patreon. Also, if you are a destination wedding videographer and you're interested in learning more and joining a community of those that are like-minded and also looking to get better at destination weddings, we have a Facebook group for that. Just click the link in the description. It'll take you to that, answer the questions. You'll be in. I'm sure you'll find a lot of benefit from it. But regardless, thanks for watching this video. Drop a like if you liked it, and I will see you guys next time.